Welcome, everyone. Today is January 23rd, 2024. This is the Finance Committee meeting, and I'd like to call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance at 6:32. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United
United
States
States of America,
and to the
to the
republic
republic for which it stands,
one nation,
nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty
liberty and justice for all.
for all. This meeting is being held remotely in accordance with the Governor of Massachusetts' March 12th, 2020 order, suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, GLC 30A, Section 20. And on March 29th, 2023, Governor Healey signed a supplemental 2023 budget bill allowing remote and hybrid meeting options for public bodies through March 31st, 2025. This meeting is being recorded. Welcome, everyone. Thank you. We're going to start off our meeting this evening with continuing with our department budget meetings. We have 3 meetings tonight. We have veterans, the Board of Health is here, and then we have the police. I asked the police to come in last, so they're going to, the chief is going to pop in after 7. So I'd like to do the veterans budget first, since that's should be a smaller budget, and then we'll move into the Board of Health. So, Carol, I think you're here, right?
I am, yes.
Hi, welcome.
Thank you.
You could introduce yourself and then just give us an overview of how things are going with you and your budget.
Sure. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Carol Freitas, the Veteran Service Officer. And today, by the way, is 23 years since I graduated Marine Corps boot camp. As an aside, it's just an important day for me. I mean, things are going well. I submitted my budget. The biggest thing on my budget is I did submit a decrease in my veterans benefits line because unfortunately we have lost a lot of Chapter 115 clients over the last few years. They're aging, they're passing away, and I haven't spent nearly the budget that I've had for the last 3 or 4 years. So I feel like what I have currently for clients, and with a little bit of growth, I will still have a sufficient amount of funding to cover them. If it's a substantial amount of growth, then maybe there won't be enough money, but I don't anticipate that happening. The rest of the budget is pretty standard. I mean, it's bare bones as it is. I did just request slight increases in my veterans graves budget because the cost of flags is going up and the number of veterans who are buried in Westport is also going up. So I will start to need to buy more flags. So I just requested, I think, a $50 budget increase for that. My other ones is, so on the veterans benefits, there's 2 line items. There's the veterans benefits, and then there's the MedX line. So the difference between the two is the veterans benefits is what is paid directly to the recipient. So it could be to help them with their housing costs, their heating costs, medical reimbursement, premiums, co-pays, things like that. The MedX line is what I use to pay vendors. So I have agreements with CVS and the Westport Apothecary to direct bill me for recipients of this program, their prescription, so they're not paying out of pocket and waiting for reimbursement. But also it pays for hearing aids, funeral, burial assistance. That is one of the benefits under the Chapter 115 program. And it's for anybody who's low income, who they don't necessarily have to be a Chapter 115 recipient. They just have to not have the means to pay for a burial. And there is a cap on that. The burial itself cannot exceed $5,000 and the maximum reimbursement is $4,000. But it's still a pretty significant amount of money. So I did request a reallocation of some of the decrease from the veterans benefits, which was a $25,000 decrease. I'm requesting that $8,000 of that be reallocated to the MedX line because I'm paying more for hearing aids, especially. Those are not cheap. They're $2,000-ish every time a recipient gets a pair of hearing aids. And I typically have overspent my MedX line and underspent my benefits line. So it's just basically a reallocation of part of that decrease. I did also request an increase, slight increase in my travel because the cost of, like the mileage reimbursement has gone up. The cost of hotels is going up. And I do go to training in June every year for 4 days. And then periodically we have like 1-day trainings where I'm traveling, mostly to Leominster. So it's a bit of a drive. So the mileage reimbursement is substantial. And then the celebrations is another line that I requested a slight increase because, so I use that line basically for the wreaths. For Memorial Day weekend, we place wreaths around town at Beech Grove Cemetery, Maple Grove Cemetery, Fontaine Bridge, Latessa Square, and then we do a bouquet at the Westport Point. And then on Memorial Day, we do a wreath at the town hall. So it's like 6 wreaths in a bouquet that we place. And the cost of the materials is going up for the florist who makes them. So I'm requesting an increase to cover what I anticipate will be the cost for FY25. Other than that, my salary line, I did the 2% increase. I did have a question because I know there's been talk about my position, potentially lowering my hours or districting. I don't know what's going on with that, but it is something that I'm a little concerned about. But I mean, that's my budget. I did mention in my presentation about the 5-year forecast as you requested. If the trend holds 5 years from now, we're going to have even less Chapter 115 clients. We went from a high of 44 when I started. We're now down to 31. There may be other recipients out there who either don't know about the program or don't currently qualify, but may down the road, especially if you have spouses. One passes away, now they've lost a significant amount of their income because the Social Security from one of the spouses goes away. So there potentially are other recipients out there. I just have to do more outreach, which is true across the state. We have to all do outreach, and our client list is going down. So unless you have questions, I think Hugh had a question, I think so.
Yep, go ahead, Hugh.
You're muted.
You're on mute, Hugh.
Some would say that's a good thing, but thank you.
Mhm.
I understand obviously generally what you do, but Chapter 115 is obviously it's a veterans of some variety, but is it World War II?
No, so
Korea or whatever?
So Chapter 115 is, for those of you who don't know, it's a financial assistance program for low-income veterans or their surviving spouses.
Mhm.
And they just have to meet the Massachusetts definition of veteran, which is 90 days of active duty, not including for training purposes during a wartime period, or 180 days of active duty, not including for training in peacetime. So, and it can just be 1 day of wartime if it's the 90 days. I don't know if you are aware or not, Governor Healy did introduce new legislation called the HERO Act. And part of that legislation, in fact, this afternoon, I listened to the hearing from the Veterans Committee today, that they did today. But they're looking to expand the definition of a veteran. So if that passes, then there could potentially be more people who are eligible for this benefit. And then my caseload may grow from that.
Well, when you talk about wartime, I mean, there are a lot of things that are police action, we say military action, but not a declared war. Is there a definition? There's some talk about the Cold War era.
So go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was just going to say, are there any significant periods of exclusion for people who were on active duty for a brief period of time, didn't make the 120 days isn't much if you were on active duty.
180 days during peacetime.
So that's basically 6 months.
Yeah, 6 months. And that does not include when they go to boot camp and when they go to their MOS school, unless it's part of a longer period of active duty. But if you have a reservist who went to boot camp, went to their military training school, and then just did reserve time, they're technically not considered a veteran unless they had a federal activation. But how they're looking to change that is if the veteran from that period of active duty, even if it was for training, got injured and they now have a service-connected disability rating, then they're going to be considered a veteran under Massachusetts law if the HERO Act passes as proposed.
Okay, so that's the same standard you are governed by. The other one, the called MedX, as I had heard you say,
Mhm.
is that open for people in general or still for veterans?
So that's for people who have gone through the application process and have been approved for the Chapter 115 program only. So
Oh, okay.
the only aspect of the Chapter 115 that applies to somebody who's not receiving regular benefits is the burial benefit. So if a veteran passes away and is not married, legally their children are not responsible for paying for the funeral. And if they don't have enough money in their bank account to cover the cost of it, then that's something that
They had to be a defined veteran in the first place to be able. They had
the
to be a veteran.
the veteran, yep. Massachusetts definition of a veteran and their spouse, their legal spouse at the time of which whoever passes away first.
And that sometimes can get complicated, I suspect, but thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Cindy, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Is there a minimum formula for how much you need to have appropriated for the number of veterans in town? Is it formula driven?
Not for how much we need to have appropriated, no. I mean, because the level of benefit varies from person to person. So it's based on their income. It's based on, do they pay for their own heat or not? It's based on what they have for medical expenses. Some people don't pay anything for medical. Other people pay several $100s a month. The state does not have, say if you have 30 recipients, you need to have $300,000. The state doesn't do that.
Okay. All right. That's what I was wondering. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Go ahead, Al.
So thanks for coming tonight. My quick question is that I've looked at the cherry sheet over a number of years, and it declines along with the people obviously that are no longer with us. So there's no particular formula, if you will. It's on a case-by-case basis. So last year, and I'm cocktail, napkin numbers here, 300 and some odd $1,000 a couple of years ago. It's now, down into the low 200s. How do you come up with that number? Does the state come up with that number?
From the cherry sheet?
Yeah.
The state comes up with that number. I don't have any input into how much is on the cherry sheet for veterans benefits.
Okay, so that may be formalized then, is what you're saying, based on what your input is or somebody else's input is to.
Al, I can explain that.
Okay, please.
It's a reimbursement from the state of 75% of the expenditures for the prior year.
Got it.
So we appropriate the money, Carol sends it out, et cetera, and so forth. In the next year, we get back 75% of what we spent.
Got
So
it.
we've got to front the money.
That's perfect. I just didn't understand. I mean, some of these things are just, on the cherry sheet formalized. Other things are just where money come from. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol, I just wanted to thank you for coming tonight. So you had made a comment a little earlier when you were doing your budget, talking about yourself and your salaries. And I don't know who might be having conversations with you about reducing your hours, but you may have heard either directly or part of some of our group meetings is we're looking at every department. And some of the questions that we asked of the select board and of ourselves was, for each department, what's really state mandated and what's not state mandated. In the event that we had to make cuts, at least we knew some options. So that's been the extent of the finance committee's conversation on that. So you know, I don't know if anybody's had more conversations, but the intent isn't to necessarily, hopefully not execute any cuts, but we're just trying to understand if we had to make them, we wanted to know where things could be done or not could be done. And so I just wanted to address that for you. So the finance committee isn't making any recommendations to cut your salary in particular. So
I appreciate that. So a veteran had come to me and said at one of the finance committee meetings that it was just one of the ideas that was thrown out was that let's look at the veteran service officer and see what is the state mandate and do we have any kind of room there. And so I did email Jim, and I don't know if he shared it with all of you, but it is state law based from 1972 that any community that has a population of over 12,000 people has to have a full-time VSO. What the state does not mandate is what is considered full-time. Because, I mean, every community considers full-time differently. And then if we district, there's minimum staffing guidelines for districts. And you have to district with a neighboring community. So you have to share a border, which leaves us Dartmouth and Fall River. And in both of those cases, it would result in having more staff than what Dartmouth and Westport has collectively, or Westport and Fall River has collectively right now.
great. Well, that would be the origin of where the conversation came from. So thank you for helping clarify that. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have any questions for Carol? I see not. Well, thank you so much for coming in, Carol, and keep doing what you're doing, and everyone appreciates it. So thank you so
very
much.
And I'm sorry I wasn't able to do this back in December when you asked, but
That's okay. You're
I
here
had
tonight, so it's
surgery.
fine. Yeah,
I was
it's fine.
out for 5 weeks recovering from surgery, so
Oh my goodness. Well, welcome back. Hope you're doing okay.
I am. Thank you very much.
Good, good. All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
All right. So our next budget we're going to talk about is with Matt is here, and we've got the Board of Health, ACO, Animal Control, and the transfer station. So Matt, I will leave the floor to you if you can introduce yourself and talk to us a bit about your budgets this year.
Sure. My name is Matt Armando. I'm the Director of Public Health here in Westport, which also oversees Animal Control and Transfer Station. So we can start, and I'm here also with Tanya Ryden, my board chair. We can start with Animal Control if you'd like. So basically, Animal Control, we've been trying to hire a part-time Animal Control officer for some time now, but we haven't had any luck. So we decided to kind of abandon that whole process for now. And by doing so, there was $20,000 allocated for that position. So we left $5,000 out of that $20,000 in a part-time line item for potential fill-ins in case we needed some extra help if we ran into a big jam. And we're going to shift $7,500 over to the overtime line to support additional hours for our current animal control officer. So what that means basically is, at the bottom line of that means is that we've decreased the overall animal control budget by 6.7%. In FY24, the total animal control budget was $89,236. FY25, we decreased it to $83,233. Basically, wages and salaries, we put in for the animal control for a 3% increase. And then the other changes described above, which left a net savings of $5,760. The expenses are basically level funded, but we reduced the clothing line item by $250 because we're eliminating that second position. So that's.
Matt, can I just ask you, what do you think the reason is why you haven't been able to find an a staff person to help?
It's the hourly pay rate is too. We just can't attract anybody because of the hourly pay rate.
And are you not able to is it a union position? Are you not able to get the rate raised or?
No, we're not, we're not able to raise the rate. We had some talks with Jim and, we just couldn't go over a certain amount because that would have raised the budget and would have raised it above the current animal control officer's pay rate.
Mhm.
What is that hourly rate for part-time?
The part-time, we were advertising at, $20 an hour. Mr. Lees has his hand up.
Yeah,
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hey,
Sorry.
I'll just tee off a little bit on what Cindy said. So what is the differential cost, Matt? So it's 20 some odd dollars an hour. What do you need to make it attractive?
So we did kind of a survey of some of the other area animal control offices, and it's right around 25.50 an hour to try to, get anybody in with any type of experience.
Times how many hours per week?
That would be, I'd say a 25-hour a week position because there's a lot of on-call coverage.
So we're looking at $150 a week times 50 weeks, just to do sloppy math here. So we're looking at $7,500, roughly speaking. I mean, I'm not trying to, pin it down to the to the penny, but about $7,500 is your differential between not attracting and attracting.
Oh, yeah, between the two different pay rates, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, just trying to understand. Thank you.
And then it would, Matt, as you said it, then it would be a potential upgrade to your existing person as well, right? So you wouldn't want to hire a new person in at a higher amount, right? But
Sharon, you're looking at 10,000.
yeah, yep, not a lot, right? Right.
Okay.
Thank you. Go ahead, Hugh, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I just want to continue. And how would that compare with the overtime rate that is filling in for the lack of the body that you can't hire?
So the overtime rate, we shifted 7,500 into the
No,
overtime.
the hourly rate we're talking about, to compare that with what we're talking about in the hourly rate for the guy that you might have to pay to hire somebody.
So that, yeah, so let me just do the math here on that, 7,500,
Oh, pays hourly, please.
yeah.
And just the difference also is it's not 25 additional hours. It's just a minimum for when
No,
a
Tony, I
service
understand. What I'm trying to ask is how much is paid for the full-time guy in overtime when he's getting overtime? What's the hourly rate in overtime?
Right.
Oh, for my current guy?
Yeah.
So once he goes beyond 40 hours, he gets time and a half. And
Which is
so-
how much?
Yes, so the time and a half rate is $37 an hour.
Okay, so that's really making Al's point. So you got a new guy paying $25 an hour, not paying the overtime at 37. You're gonna save money
Correct.
rather than costing more. Because part of this is you're filling the time that would be used by the new person with overtime, which costs more.
Mm-hmm.
So I would
Wait.
suggest that you reduce the overtime allowance and bring back the prospective hire at a rate you think would work. I know there's some machinery in the background, maybe the personnel board and so forth to deal with that, but it seems to me that would be a wise thing to do. Because it seems
There's
like
also
it saves-
benefit costs in the background too.
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that, please, Matt? I didn't catch that last part.
So there's also benefits behind the scenes too. So that person would be a benefited person, health, sick, vacation, whatever the town considers the percentage that goes into a person for benefits.
Right.
Even at the 25 hours?
Yeah, so that's an over 20, I believe, is benefited.
Okay.
Okay. But I would also suggest on the flip side that one of the problems that we have, not just with animal control, but throughout different buckets in the town as a whole, is there's no backup.
Mhm.
You know,
Exactly.
that is big concern. So all of the animal control officer is sick, on vacation, whatever the heck it might be, and something comes up. So I just want to toss that out on the table as well. It's not just a pure money issue. It's a service issue.
We know all too well. We live it with one animal control officer. We run into it all the time. He
Yeah.
does have vacation. He does get sick, and we're fortunate to have other communities to help us out in emergency situations only. But we do need a backup person, and it's a conversation that I'm happy to revisit with Jim, the town administrator.
Yeah,
Yeah,
my point, as I say, was to compare not just the extra expense in the abstract, but as opposed to filling the time with overtime. I think that's the best comparison of the net
Mhm.
expense or savings, as the case may be. And yes, benefits is part of the package, but if you think of it as decreasing the need for overtime, and that's where your funding comes from in a sense, I think that's the analysis.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree 100%, Alan, what Hugh, you just said. It's in part service too, right? So we are paying more money for less service you got one person, and if that person is going to get overwhelmed and overloaded, and eventually they might leave because they can't handle the overtime or don't want that. And this isn't the way to structure a department for any long-term stability. So I would definitely encourage looking at this again. And if that means raising the hourly rate, so you have two people and you have backup, I think that would seem to be more appropriate. I'm in support of that.
That's welcome news for us. That's not the direction we've been given in the past. We'd certainly be willing to explore that, but over the last few years, that has not been, flexibility on increasing the hourly rate has not been on the table for us. So if you're saying it's on the table, we can pursue that. It will increase the budget of the animal control office. And I understand the town is constrained in its resources. And so if this is a priority for the town to have more, we're not happy not having any flexibility or backup coverage. It's not,
I think as we said, it's comparative time. You got to cover the time at a higher price, it appears, even though it appears in a different place in the budget. So how it ends up being, maybe we say we can't really afford it, but I can remember some years ago, there was an idea about reducing a couple of firefighters, which meant you lost an ambulance, and the revenue from the ambulance was more than the cost of the firefighters. That was originally proposed and ended up not being done because it didn't make any sense. This is not as dramatic. I think it's the same kind of analysis. Does it make sense?
Mhm.
Well, I understand what you're saying. We're offering, because we have not been able to attract a person at the salary that we're allowed to offer, the amount being converted over to overtime is less than half of what we would have for a salary person at 20,000, because we're not asking for 20 hours more of overtime a week. He couldn't do that. That's too much. This is just patching the worst holes. So to go back to the proposal to have two staff, which we'd love, is definitely going to cost the town more than what our current budget is.
If you could help quantify that for us, that would be terrific. So if you had two staff people, and if you had to raise your rate to more in line with at least more of a market rate, so you can attract people, how much more would you need than the current budget?
So it would be $5 a person more. So 20 hours plus 40 is Nick 40?
I think it's 40 hours, yeah.
So 60 hours times 5. I I can't do that, Mike.
300.
250, I think.
So $300 more a week to have a full-time and a half-time animal control officer. At,
15,600 a year.
yeah, so
Well-
additional, above our
Then you
current,
take away the overtime, right?
but reducing, the current budget is 89,000. That does not include that extra overtime. I'm just looking at the FY24 budget. So we're talking about adding 15,000 to the 89,000 as opposed to what we proposed of 83,000. So we would be asking for at least 20,000 more than we are currently asking for in order to have 1.5 staff. So
Yeah,
have that.
We may get some further clarification on this. You may be aware that the Personnel Board is in the beginning stages of doing a classification and salary comparison survey with other communities. So, we'll see. I mean, we could find that, we are woefully underpaying, or maybe we are on market, and maybe some of those things will become a little bit more obvious once that survey is complete. We expect that to be complete over the next couple of months. So we can take a look at that and see how far you might be underpaying, or maybe you're sticking out, which I tend to doubt. But so we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, and I appreciate the survey, and that's all important to do, but the real test is when you try to post for the position and you get no response. That's your answer right there. Right? That's your answer. I think that Gary, you might have your hand up. Is that
Yeah,
you?
I do. Thanks, Karen. I agree 100% with Cindy. That's what I was going to mention. That we're going to have to use some kind of guidance, some kind of baseline. Sitting on the personnel board, you see this. You see, like, departments come in and tell you they can't hire because A, the job descriptions are all out of whack, and B, the salary is not competitive. So we have a number of groups and departments that come in front of us here on the finance committee that wish they could have another staff person or another police officer or fire department. But I think that us as the finance committee need to have some kind of baseline or guidance, and I think that this study will at least set that. And whether or not it's right or wrong, and the town accepts it, it's a starting point. And I wouldn't feel comfortable making any recommendation at this point to any board or committee or a department that says otherwise, that we've been doing this forever. I mean, look at the years past. All these departments that come in front of us, they're looking for additional staff. We know that these departments are understaffed, well understaffed. And unfortunately, the override didn't go through, and this is what we're hearing. This is the ramifications of not enough revenues. Absolutely. And, right now we're in a tough position, to be honest.
Mhm.
Gary, I'll butt in here for a second. I couldn't agree with you more. And a couple of quick examples over the last few weeks have been lifeguards. I mean, look at the increase that we had to make in lifeguards. We had none, zero. And there are other positions. What about a part-time staff, a building inspector that could go out and do more things? I mean, there are so many examples.
Oh, absolutely. Every department.
Every department and every department, with almost without exception, is it is we are coming to a breaking point if we are not already there. And this is obviously my opinion. We know what our limits of Prop 2.5 and additional revenue and all the other stuff are. We get all that. But at a certain point, this town is going to grind to a halt.
An example of that is I had a conversation today with the highway director, and he said, it's great that we get funded with all this brand new equipment. It's great. He said, but I don't have the staff to run it. I really don't.
Right.
I don't have the crew. We're lucky that we had a year this year with limited snowfall, the same thing last year. But I mean, people will start to see the effects of no revenue. I mean, it's just, there's no other way to put this, and we don't want to bang the drum and said, we told you so, but we kind of told you so, and we're trying to be frugal, but there's a point where that doesn't work anymore.
No. Sometimes you have to grow your way out of a situation, and growing it is in the government world is not by making more sales or whatever. It is just by getting more revenue that is targeted and directed towards specific things that people can see, and or on the flip side, people can say, why can't we do this, and this? Well, the reason is very simple. There ain't no money.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I'll just rant.
And I agree with everything that everyone said, but I would also ask us to always be thinking about, sometimes in light of that, maybe 10 or 15,000 will make the absolute world to a department, and really isn't going to impact a $50 million budget all that significantly. So
Good.
It's just things, right, to keep in mind, right? So
Good for you. We're running a $50 million business here, and a little bit can make a huge difference in the departments or in people's lives. When you look at what you just said, Karen, and I agree with you completely. And Cindy has brought this up many times in the past, and I know Hugh has, that it's not in budget. We just
So Tanya, so I know it hasn't been the direction of the town administrator. At least we now have a number. So as all the budgets start to come together, we can, we'll evaluate everyone's needs and risks, and at least we have a number from you to know. So no guarantee on anything, just trying to gauge where some opportunities might be.
Okay. All right, do you want me to move on to the Board of Health?
Yeah, please.
All right. So Board of Health is essentially level funded. We went in at level funded for FY25, with the exception there was some mandatory salary increases and some contractual increases. So just as an example, we had, because of some union negotiations, we had 2 staff members that got promoted, and with that came pay salary increases or hourly rate increases. Kind of happened in the middle of a budget year, which wasn't great, but it happened. So, but it should be noted that the health department already relies on many volunteer hours by my board to complete certain projects, as well as outside organization assistance for mailings, etc. That just can't be supported by our current budget. The board has also authorized select fee increases for FY24 to reflect the additional workload imposed by late applications, etc. So overall, the Board of Health increased because of contractual obligations and those 2 mandatory promotions, increased 4.4%, which equals $19,393. So in FY24, our total was $434,819, and FY25, our total now is $451,212. So
That's good
That's
news.
Board of Health.
Thank you for doing that.
Transfer station. Again, the transfer station is level funded for FY25, except for the mandated salary increases and a clothing allowing increase per the union contract. 1 staff position was downgraded to attendant 1. We advertised for a worker, which was a Class B and a hoister. We couldn't attract one, so we hired in another attendant, which essentially it decreased the rate for FY25 in that line item. Since salaries are too low to attract personnel with other high qualifications, resulted in a decrease in personnel costs. Our recycling program increased from 16,000 to 20,000. Just the cost of the increase to recycle all around us is going up. We're tracking to spend 21,000 this year on the recycling program in FY '24. But still, we think this is still a very conservative budget request. Tire disposal increased. It's at $800 now. We have to go up to $900, which is a $100 increase. And the Board of Health authorized fee increases in several recycling categories this year to offset the higher recycling costs. So due to recent significant increases in curbside pickup costs, we're seeing an increase in the number of transfer station users. So the transfer station has a net increase for FY '25 of 1%. We're going from FY '24, 339, 158 to in FY '25, 342, 506.
Thank you, Matt. Anyone have questions on that? Go ahead, Cindy.
What is the revenue? What is the income at the transfer station?
All right, give me 1 second. I'll give you I can give you FY '23's full year.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. So the grand total for FY '23 was 289, 937, 74.
Okay. And so you're saying I forgot what I don't have the budget here in front of me. My screen isn't working quite right to be able to grab another page. So the total budget for the transfer station is how much?
For FY '24?
Yeah,
25.
24. I'm sorry?
Do you want
25?
24 total budget or 25?
Doesn't matter.
25 total budget is 342, 506.
Okay, so you're close. You're what, 80,000 more or less shy of being self-sufficient, is that correct?
Well, that's not entirely correct. We did this analysis last year to show, there are expenses that the transfer station has to assume in its budget that has nothing to do with the transfer station operations, like the landfill monitoring is in our budget to pay, even though it's not a direct transfer station operation cost. So there are things like that. We take in town trash and don't charge other town departments to the tune of maybe 20,000 a year value. So if you looked at all of the sort of, not just the direct expense revenue line items, but you added all those other variables, the transfer station would be a net profit center.
And what's not reflected in this is the receipts reserved account. 15% of all transactions that go through the transfer station go into this receipts reserve account, which doesn't reflect in that 289 number I gave you.
Okay. Okay, so for all intents and purposes, you're pretty much break even.
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'm not worried about a few thousand here or there, but you're pretty much break even. Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Thanks. And I think, Matt and Tanya, I think what would be helpful if you could brush up and send to the committee. Matt, you and I had an exchange over the summer, and I asked you a lot of those questions of how profitable the transfer station is, and you put together a really nice analysis, and I asked you a few questions, and you incorporated some of my questions in there. That might be a good to freshen that memo up and send it to us, because that really helped demonstrate how the transfer station is self-supportive. So I think that will give everyone the whole picture of your revenues, and taking out those sort of costs that are, those are fixed costs, whether or not the transfer station existed or not, those costs would continue. So we don't want to incorporate those into your break-even analysis of the transfer station. So I think that would be helpful if you could get that to us.
Sure, I'll work on that and get it up to date.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you. Christopher, go ahead. You've got your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So I did have a quick question regarding some of the increased usage. I think that certainly everybody's gotten their latest increase in the private hauling fees for trash pickup here. My question is, if the increases in the usage for of the town facility continues, is there a risk of hitting a certain level where the hauling fees might jump up more so, or just disproportionately to what's coming in if that increase continues?
Well, the new users have, with the sticker fees and the punch card fees, it should compensate for that and keep it pretty well in line.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Could I just add one thing? Just along the lines of what we've been talking about in terms of, or the finance committee has been talking about in terms of salaries and being able to attract employees. We now only have one transfer station employee who can drive the truck, smush down the trash with a, backhoe or whatever. So we have to rely on private contractors to fill the gap because salaries are not high enough to attract qualified workers. So we have attendants. So we have lower level staff who can't do those functions. So there's, again, that's sort of that example of there's very little backup, in terms of staffing. We have to go to private, and then we have somewhat less control over those expenses. When their fees, when their the private contractor hauling fees go up, we have to pay it because we can't not haul the trash out down to the Covanta. So that's just, again, it's sort of similar to the stresses throughout the town budget. We are leaner and leaner and leaner, in part because of those because of the low salaries, and there's less backup, less flexibility, and higher risk for the community ultimately. But it's not unique to that department. It's true throughout the town. I just wanted to remind people of that's the situation at the transfer station. And it may get to a point where we just have to close on a day because we don't have enough staff, or we can't remove the trash out, so we can't take trash in because we can't haul the dumpster away. Those kinds of things might start happening.
Yeah, but Tanya, that's a slippery slope, because you close another day and then all of a sudden the people that are working are working one less day. And then, the next thing you know, so yeah, the budget can look good, but the next thing you know, people are saying, I can't live on 4 days a week.
Understood.
Whatever the math is, So, I just, I know we're saying the same thing. But it becomes a slippery slope. I mean, people are working for an organization, whether it's a private business or whether it is the government. They expect certain things in return. The government expects things in return, and it's difficult. I get your point completely, but it's not ideal. Let's just leave it at that.
I agree.
Add it to the list of non-ideal things.
You
Yeah.
took the words right out of my mouth, Cindy. Absolutely. Any other questions for Matt or Tanya while they're here? No? Okay. Well, thank you again for coming in. Appreciate your coming, and very nice presentation. Much appreciated. Thank you for all you do, and we'll see what happens with the budget really soon.
All right, thank you. Thank you,
All
guys.
right. Thank you very much. Thanks. All right, so our next budget for this evening is the police department, and I think I saw our chief is here. Did I see him? Where? Yes,
He's there. He's
he's
there.
done. Chief Dunn,
There he is.
hello.
I hit the leave the group by accident.
I thought I saw you and then you're not there. Well, first, congratulations on your appointment. Congratulations. And
Thank
maybe you can introduce yourself to the committee and let us know how your police department's going.
I'd love to, Madam Chair. Thank you, everybody, for having me this evening. My name is Chris Dunn. Chris is fine. I've been with the Westport Police Department since 1998, carrying various roles: patrol officer, detective sergeant, detective sergeant, and now into my current role as your chief of police for our department. Our department's doing well right now, especially considering we're down 5 officers, and that's something I would like to talk about in my PowerPoint presentation. I don't know if you'd like to talk about the budget first and then the PowerPoint, or vice versa. This is my first time doing it, so whatever pleases the board or pleases the committee.
I think a PowerPoint presentation is a nice way to start because it's a nice overview rather than getting lost in the numbers. So are you able to share your screen to do that, Chris? Are you able to? or-
Don't know how to be honest. with
Okay.
you.
Do you,
I did send you the presentation.
I have it. I can try to share it as well. So I'm going to go off video for a second. You can kind of just talk a little bit and let me see what I can do.
Sure.
Karen, I'll watch for hands while you have you share the screen, because I know you can't see the rest of your screen when you do that. Karen is on mute. I can only assume she's trying to put the screen up. There we go. There we go.
Congratulations.
Good. Okay. I think we have that screen up now. So Chief, why don't you take us through this?
Thank you, Cindy. So just, yes, this first slide, second slide, actually. I understand that many individuals might have a limited snapshot into our department. I want to provide a comprehensive overview of who we are and what we do as a department. First, while some of our community might perceive our town as a quiet, residential, summer-focused community, it's important to recognize that we are not immune to the crimes and quality of life issues that face larger cities and towns. I'm hoping this presentation kind of aims to depict the essential role of our officers in serving our townspeople. Currently, we have members of our department who are currently engaged in 2 separate federal criminal investigations. They're collaborating with state, local, and federal partners to address multi-state crimes. Besides the crimes we're going to talk about in the future slides, I just want to let you know we're not immune in our town in regards to crime gangs. Some gangs like to post or be overt about who they are. While they might not be prevalent within our community, it's extremely common for gangs and gang leaders to rent or reside within our town. And the reason being is they like to hide out from law enforcement, from their respective community, but also hiding out against rival gang members. I'm hoping the upcoming slides will highlight a selection of not all the crimes that we investigate, along with data on overdoses and epidemic increasing our behavioral health component. As you see in the previous slide, we're currently budgeted for 31 officers. We currently have 26 on board. We have 1 officer who's eligible for retirement at any time, so he could potentially leave. Additionally, we have 2 officers in the military reserves. While deployment isn't anticipated, you never know with the state of the world right now. We currently have initiated the hiring process. As you can see, we have anticipated hiring of 5 people. We're going to do our best to hit that amount. This involves a multifaceted approach. We have a written test that we start with, then an oral interview, then a physical agility test, psychological test, and then a physical. This process occurs before an individual even enters the academy, the police academy and field training program, which is approximately 9 months long. So this is very time consuming for us. There are regional academies within the Commonwealth. The two closest ones for us are Randolph and Plymouth, which you can see how the competition is fierce in so many seats within each academy. Usually it's about 40 to 45. So we're competing with the cities of Brockton, Taunton, Fall River, large towns of Plymouth, to try to get our recruits in a timely fashion. So we're trying to anticipate when these new academies are going to open up. They're currently having classes and getting new recruits in at that time. Considering the time-consuming nature of this process, we might be looking at the possibility of exploring hiring somebody before an individual retires to minimize the gap in our staffing. But that's something we'll be looking at. The next slide, before I want to just tell people what NIBRS is. NIBRS stands for the National Incident Report System. Prior to talking about our department, our area, and our statistics, I want to give a brief explanation of the agency and how we submit our statistics to. This slide represents what NIBRS is, and it captures detailed data information regarding criminal incidents and a broad array of offenses. So the classification of NIBRS is you have Class A offenses, which you can see there's a multitude of them. I highlighted in red the ones we commonly deal with. Not to say we don't deal with the other ones, however, just maybe not as much. So the difference between Class A and Class B, or Group A and Group B, is Group B offenses are only used to report arrest data. So as you can see with Group B of driving under the influence, disorderly conduct, those are just a few of some Class B offenses. The next slide is, I did a 5-year crime statistics for our department. As you can see, arrests in Group A and Group B, I believe we're on the same, okay. Arrests in Group A and Group B crimes and restraining orders have increased since last year. These crimes have been investigated by our department, which is short-staffed. Citations are down, however, that could be related to a decrease in staffing that we currently have. This also corresponds to a decrease in miles traveled since we're short 3 officers. We were down approximately 30,000 miles in our patrol. Grant funding was awarded to our department, which allowed us to add extra patrols to compensate for the lack of officers conducting proactive policing during their routine shifts because they involved in criminal investigations. The next slide, we talk about calls for service. In the 5-year time frame, as you can see, the calls for service are roughly the same year to year. The interesting point of our population is, as we know, we're a summer community. Our town population significantly increases during the summer months. This is due to vacationers, people owning second homes, and the beaches. I'm sure people know on a hot, sunny August day, the beaches in our town in Horse Neck Beach, that's the population of a small town. Miles patrolled, as we talked about, we had 3 less officers on the street this year, as well as an officer assigned to a federal task force, which supplied an unmarked vehicle. There's something I want to just briefly touch on for a few minutes, is our take-home cruiser program. And for those who may not know much about this, all our full-time officers reside in our community. When I first started back in 1999, we currently had 3 to 4 what we called line cars, where we'd average 30 to 35,000 miles a year per cruiser. So within the first 12 months, our warranty would be expired, and we routinely go over our mileage. A lot of times these cars are operating at 16 to 24 hours a day, meaning around the clock. So with this program, we currently, with the cruisers that are currently assigned to us, are given to us through capital improvement, we're surpassing our warranty, and the cruisers are lasting for many years. It also promotes accountability. Now we have 1 officer driving 1 cruiser instead of 3 or 4 officers driving 1 cruiser. They're responsible for oil changes and improved repairs. They do this on their own time. We do have overlapping shift coverage now, so when an officer calls on the air or a group of officers call on the air, we now have double the complement for a short period of time. where the officers are calling on the air, actually respond to calls, which means response times are quicker during that time, as well as negates overtime. Also, with regards to Haven Cruises, when we need to call officers in for a fatality or significant events like a winter storm or an opening day of school, officers are ready immediately. They do not have to get in their own vehicle, drive to the station, get into their own car, put their cruiser, get their own gear in. They can respond right away. With the take-home cruisers, everybody should know that there is a defibrillator assigned to each cruiser. We did have an instance a few years back where we had a family member of one of our officers who fell ill. The officer went, grabbed the defibrillator, provided the defibrillator the shock, and actually brought that family member back to life. Lastly, our neighbors and neighborhoods enjoy seeing a police car cruiser in the driveway. It's a sense of comfort. I've had many neighbors of mine come to my, over the years, tell me how thankful they are having a cruiser in their driveway. And in one instance, I had an older couple actually knock on my door and ask for directions. And this is something that they would not have done if they didn't see my police car in the driveway. So I just want to give a little snippet, a very brief overview of the miles patrolled as well as our take-home cruiser program. The next slide is the crime rate per 1,000, which I tried using towns of similar size. Just of note, many communities have more commercial businesses within our community. I am a little somewhat skeptical over this NIBRS reporting system, and it's an asterisk of it, only because I look at the town of Norton. The town of Norton is at 4.5%, I believe. So that's something, I look at, but I also kind of look at and really want to explore a little bit deeper about that. So one thing I really want to speak about is grants. I'm a firm believer in our department to aggressively seek out grants. However, we need to be aware of that it should not supplement the budget. As we know, grants come and go. I want us to aggressively seek out grants that will benefit not only the department, but grants that are thoughtful and meaningful to our community. And this is one that I brought up, a COSAP grant. So what COSAP grant does is provides community outreach to individuals who suffer an overdose and also behavioral issues. We started just being a data entry in 1999, where we were just entering overdoses. However, in 2023, we started to expanding upon this, where officers were going out with a clinician after an individual suffered an overdose to provide help to not only the person who overdosed, but also to the family members, because many times the family member is the one who actually finds the person who overdoses. So in late 2023, we started providing these services not only for overdoses, but for mental health, behavioral health. In the past decade, our department has seen and witnessed an increase in calls for service regarding situations where people need behavioral services. The idea is to kind of be very proactive in helping these individuals out. Since the end of 2023, we started having officers not only, like I said, go for the overdoses, but also the behavioral mental health. And we've already immediately started seeing benefits to this, where unfortunately officers are going back to the same house. However, that person is specifically asking for that officer who went there, and they're forming a bond in a relationship already, where there's a trust starting to be established, where they could hopefully be more receptive to future services. I understand with grants, many of the residents want to know what the cost is, and rightfully so. With this grant, it does not cost the community any money, or a very minimal cost. It covers the overtime of the officers' overtime. It also covers to backfill a shift when necessary. The next one is, and I'm sorry, there's some stats underneath, but I can just walk you through it. Regarding, this is what we did against other communities in 2023 regarding overdoses. Unfortunately, in 2023, we've had 5 fatal overdoses. We had 10 non-fatal events. Since we just started at the end of the year, starting doing the behavioral health component, we've had 4 documented incidents with behavioral health. And the non-fatal events, we've had where officers administered Narcan 10 times, resulting in 9 saves, or 9 times that they deployed Narcan, the person came back to life. The next grant, the next slide is what we had with this grant since its inception, since 2019. Unfortunately, as you can see, again, we've had 14 fatal incidences since that time. We've had 76 non-fatal instances. We've administered Narcan 58 times, 54 times. The result, they brought a person back to life. If we could just go back to the previous grant, previous slide, there's one thing I failed to mention. As you can see to the left in town of Swansea, you see how one of the bars skyrocketed immensely. That's because Swansea in 2023 started adding the behavioral health component to this grant. So I predict in 2024 we're going to see the behavioral health component go up for us significantly, which hopefully will be a good thing for us regarding getting help to individuals who need it in a timely manner and a lot quicker than what normally we do as in police work. Lastly, I think in order to be open, about our financial needs, our potential financial needs in the next 3 years. In 2027, we're going to need funding for body-worn camera storage. We currently have it through the iCloud. I anticipate this to be approximately $40,000. A new iCAD system. So basically, the current system that we're using, I started with in 1999. So the functionality of it has gone away. I equate it to using Microsoft Word 99 in this. It works. However, there are products out there that have increased better searches, streamlining for evidence, discovery for court, which that decreases the officer's hours that they're currently assigned to these tasks where they can go and do something else. We're currently looking at this. I know it's a big number, 250,000. That's something we're going to look at with grants to supplement the cost. And again, this is something we're looking at in the next couple of years. I want to make the Finance Committee aware of this now, rather than me coming in next year, the following year, and saying, we need this, and this is, instead of being proactive about it. Regarding increased budget staff from 31 to 33, I understand, the Prop 2.5 didn't pass. I understand a lot of departments are in need of increased staffing. I say that only because there was a public safety staffing committee previously, and that's something hopefully we can reconvene. And I believe that this is what they recommended, was having staffing levels to 33 officers. Again, that's something I hopefully that can be addressed in the future, and it's something I just want to bring up to the committee. So that's my quick PowerPoint presentation in a nutshell. My apologies if I kind of rushed through this. If anybody has any questions about the PowerPoint in itself or about what we do, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, Chief. That was great. I'm back. So here we go. Does anyone have any questions for the Chief? Go ahead, Hugh.
Chief, I just wanted to point out, you spoke about the grant that is for the mental health side of things, et cetera.
Yes.
I think that's a 3-year duration. I may be right or wrong, but any idea what happens when you come to the end of the 3 years? Is it something where the town is anticipated to have to pick up that, or is there some potential for continued funding of that operation?
So there is potential continued funding, and the reason why I say that is because this grant initially started just for the opioid epidemic, the fentanyl epidemic, and the co-sponsors actually got this to be more besides the opioid epidemic, but also getting into the behavioral health. I have a meeting with the project manager on Monday, and that's a question I'll address. However, I feel as though, considering where we're at regarding the opioid epidemic and behavioral health, I feel that this is kind of the tip of the spear with this. This is the model that he started has been expanded through other counties within the state, and I believe into Rhode Island. So I anticipate this grant to be projecting forward. If it doesn't go forward, then that's something we'll have to explore at that time as to what we can do to provide quality services to our residents in our town that need it.
Yeah, that was the point I was going to mention, that this is looking for sometime down the road. So it's something to bear in mind, and I'm glad you are bearing it in mind, but it's not today, it's sometime in the future.
Thank you, Hugh. Chris, can you just remind us, I know last year and with the override, there's some SROs that are in the school or not in the school. Can you just give us a summary of what you have in your budget, or are you at least allocating to the school for SRO officers?
Yes, we currently have 2 SRO officers that are in our budget. We have one currently at the high school, and we currently have one at the elementary school in the Matt Humber. The one at the elementary school in Matt Humber goes back and forth. So currently we have 2 of our officers out of our 26 that are currently in the schools. And during the summer when they don't have schools, my goal is to help them augment our patrol staff during that time, specifically the beaches, where in the past we've had part-time officers patrol our beaches and write parking tickets and answer minor calls for service. However, with the new post requirements, they're pretty much eliminating our reserve police officers across the state in general. So now we need to start focusing on these school resource officers to help us out during the summertime down the beaches.
I think it's worthwhile pointing out that in the past, the state police took care of Horse Neck, but I think in the past several years, that's been on your plate, right?
Yes, we do have that Horse Neck Beach Preservation Fund, which allows us to have an officer down there. State police have not been down there a little bit. I believe when they do show up, I work very well with the state police. However, they're down there on horses, which I think is a great look. However, we need people there when there's a call for service, or breaking into a motor vehicle, a traffic collision. Unfortunately, there are fights that happen at the beach. It is what it is, and having an officer in a cruiser to respond there is a lot quicker than having a trooper on there on a horse.
Yell. Yeah.
Chris, in terms of your, and I appreciate you're looking ahead 3 years on some capital needs. Did that get through to the capital improvement committee? Is that, Cindy, or is that part of the 5-year capital plan that is being finalized or presented?
We have not seen that yet. The Capital Improvement Committee had been meeting prior to Chief Dunn's appointment. So this had not shown up on any of the radar screens. So we would certainly encourage him to include that in the future capital plan.
Great, thank you.
Thank you for giving me that little insight about that. It's something, I'm learning as I go. So I appreciate you saying that to me.
Well, it's definitely I think the Capital Improvement Committee has always requested the longer term view, and I think we're more actively trying to get that to become more comprehensive. So we appreciate your putting your input in there, so this way we can build it every year. Not that we can pay for anything that's in the capital plan, but it's helpful. Jim, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Good.
Hi, thanks for coming.
I thought I had a camera, but it's not working. I put on a new shirt and everything. I just want to mention with the SRO officers, this year the SRO officer was intended to be paid for through the school budget. But we've tried to absorb that. I think the chief has tried to absorb that into his budget. And I think it was last year when they had an officer out injured on duty or military leave, and they needed to pull that resource officer out and put him on patrol. I think that may be the case here with the current staffing levels you have. If something happens, that would be one that would be removed from the schools. So, I wanted to point out that it was originally going to be paid for by the schools, but I think we're absorbing that on our side.
I think it's worth pointing out that the 5 vacancies are recent, that there were 2 recent retirements. John Bell retired and Chief Pelican retired. So it's not as if the department has been short of those officers for a long time. And this is not a surprise, obviously, it was programmed. But We are short at this point, as indicated by the chief.
Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions for the chief? Sure. There's a question from the public. Carrie Kuna, go ahead.
Hi, Chief Dunn. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
I walked away and I may have missed it, but could you tell me what you do with CAD software?
It's a program called IMC. So it's everything that we do for our department regarding calls for service that are documented, incident reports, arrests, accidents, anytime we our license to carries. So all this software is pretty much our hub for our department as to what we do, and it's actually used with other agencies in the area as well. It's a fairly standard program that we've used. Like I said, we started at 99. We have upgrades every year, but it's pretty much nothing's changed with it. So it's how we generate our reports, where we write our reports in. We can do, it's some functionality to it. We can do checks, meaning we can check to see if somebody has a license to carry, or if we've documented going through a house before. So that's pretty much what the software does in and of itself. I hope I'm answering your question. There's just a lot to it.
But it's primarily design software, correct?
It's designed, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for the chief? Well, Chief, I think you did an excellent job with your presentation. Thank you for coming tonight, and
Congratulations.
Are we gonna do
The
the
budget.
budget part?
Oh, we wanted to do the budget. We wanted to talk numbers. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Look
No,
at
not
that.
at
I was
all.
trying to let you go home.
No,
These finance committee members want to talk about budgets. Oh, my goodness.
I could be here all night. It's a learning experience for me, so no problem at all.
Go ahead, go ahead, Chris, if you want to talk
Sure.
about your
So,
budget.
I sat down with Jim on a few occasions to go over the budget, regarding, the police, regarding our personnel. It has gone up a little bit, but that's projected, hopefully contractually with the union. So there's no significant increases other than that, or no increases other than that. And I'll defer to Jim if I happen to misspeak on this. Regarding our expenses, nothing's changed from FY24 to FY25. Everything's level funded regarding in our expenses.
But I take it you've allowed for filling the vacancies, right?
Yes. Yes. Did I answer the question? I'm sorry.
I think you did. I'm just going to say that we know that there are vacancies, but there needs to be money in the budget, so you can hire people to fill the vacancies. But that means, as you said, it's not higher than last year. It's simply waiting for people. And if you don't hire somebody for a few months, that'll end up going back into free cash.
Correct. Yes. And again, at the same point, since we're down 5 officers, you need to know that it's going to incur some overtime costs because we're backfilling shifts,
Right.
and stuff like
Good
that.
point. Good point.
So I put the screen up. I don't know if this is too small for everybody, but
If you could make it bigger, would be nice.
okay.
That's good.
Is that good? Okay.
Much better. For the visually challenged, yes.
Great. Go ahead, Chris. You can keep on going. I'll kind of
So like I said, from left to right, as you can see what the department requested and what town accountant, I believe also requested, that mirrors. The only changes are in, like I said, a proposed possible contractual wage increase. There is going to be negotiations coming up, which hopefully that will go smoothly. So that's the expense side, like I said, underneath it, the personnel side, under the expenses below, everything stayed the same from FY 24 to FY 25. There's been no increase in any of the line items.
Chief, I think it'd be useful if you'd explain, go back up to professional, which is a big number. Item 5114,
Okay,
and basically you explain what that is.
well, that's for the 31 budgeted police officers.
So that's personnel.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Yep, so
When does the current contract expire?
June 30th of this year,
Of 24, okay.
yes.
And also say, I noticed there's one car, but I know traditionally there've been about three. Is that because, are there others that are in the capital budget, or is that something typically this year is only gonna get one car?
I believe that the capital improvement is requesting 2 police
Right.
cruisers this year.
Right. That's correct.
Right, so the cars are 0 in this budget, right? New cars.
Yeah. Right. I'm looking at last year. You're right.
Yep, that's okay.
I think the chief explained the car situation quite thoroughly earlier on, so we don't need to belabor the point.
Al, go ahead. You've got your hand up.
Just a quick question, Chief. Are you having any issues like many other departments in the town attracting people because of pay scale? Given the broader area, let's say from Seekonk to Wareham and Taunton. I'm just using that area.
Sure.
So
Honestly, I do not. When I was in a representative for the police union, I kind of got into the minutia of what other departments pay compared to what we pay in our town. And I always said that, we should not be the least paid or the highest paid. And I believe that's reflective in our current wage scale regarding our department. With that being said, if it's like anything else, if we don't stay in line with what other departments are getting regarding percentages or unions getting for percentage in other towns, we're going to fall behind. And when we fall behind, that's when we're seeing lateral transfers. When I keep saying when I first started, but it was one of those when you got a job in policing, that's where you stayed, unless you went to the state police or you went to a federal agency. Now in this day and age, you don't see that. You see a lot of the new officers, they contract shop, for a better word, where if they find out there's another agency that has a better contract, there's almost no allegiance. They will transfer to that department. So I just want to say that, like, yes, I believe we are comparable with other communities, which I firmly believe in. I just don't want to see us get behind. We're losing officers. We're actually, in essence, training officers for those 9 months. We're paying them through the academy. We're paying for the physical. We're paying for the psychological. We're paying for everything, and sending the academy and training them for 3 months, and then putting them out on the street, and then they're transferring to another agency, and then we're restarting the process all over again.
right.
Thank you.
All right, that's great. Thanks, Chief.
Cindy, go ahead.
Let's talk about the residency requirement. So do you find that that's a detriment right now? And just following up to Al's question, that, if you don't feel that staffing is a significant issue, do you feel that it would be enhanced if you didn't have a residency requirement? And where does that clause reside? Is that a bylaw or is that a union contract clause?
No, that's a bylaw. I believe it's Article 34.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken. If we ever decided as a town or as an agreement with the police union about waiving our residency requirement, which a lot of the norm is 15 miles from border to border, I can tell you that we would be attracting a lot of very qualified police officers from either larger or smaller police departments. What we're finding now is it's just we're a very hot commodity as a town. We have very little housing, affordable housing for officers, and the rent is not cheap. So if that ever was the case, yes, I think we could certainly fill those positions quicker than going through the recruit phase of which takes almost a year, 9 months to a year to do.
Right, so you don't expect that of the 5 vacancies that you have currently, you would not expect that you would have any of them filled for another 9 to 12 months?
Well, again, we're projecting forward. I'm hoping that we project an academy class coming in Plymouth in June to July. So we're hoping to at least get 2 or 3 applicants at that time. There is contract negotiations that are coming up. I know the fire department and the fire union negotiated waiving the residency in the previous contract. I'm hoping something that we can address in this contract. Hopefully there's some traction with the police union on that. So if we can come up with an agreement, we can start filling positions earlier. I still would like to hire from, if there's a qualified Westport applicant who resides in our town, I would definitely like to hire that person as well. Kind of get a best of both worlds, where we're getting really qualified officers from other departments who want to work in our community and hopefully potentially move into our community, as well as residents of our community who've lived here their whole life who want to become a police officer.
Great, thank you.
Great, thank you. Any other questions on the budget? Carrie Kuna, go ahead.
Sorry to keep going backwards. You mentioned a hosting cost, and I've noticed a lot of departments are paying hosting costs. And I just want to put it on the record that I think that's something we have the ability to host, and we're not using it. So it's something to think about across the board.
By a
Someone
hosting cost?
explain what that is.
It's a cloud. It's keeping our information digital and a place to store it. And I think we have that ability. I know the school does, but the school too is paying hosting. So it's something you might want to think about in every department. That's all.
Thank you. Any other questions for the chief? All right, well, now you've officially done your budget.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate all the questions and some learning stuff for me to do regarding capital improvement and maybe going forward, just keeping everybody in the loop that way.
Great.
Chief, thank you.
Thank you very much. Congratulations, and we'll look forward to talking to you again.
Yes, I look forward to seeing everybody hopefully in the community. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Have a nice night.
Thank you. So Jim Hartnett's here. I asked him if he had an opportunity. There's just a couple of small budgets that we didn't really put on the schedule because I kind of figured they'd be kind of fill-in budgets, which would be the town hall and the town hall annex and the select board budget. So Jim, if you're here, do you mind kind of just giving us some highlights on that budget? Those budgets, I can pop them up on the screen if you are able to. Do you want me to do that?
If you could do that, that'd be great.
I can do that. I'll start off with, I'll surprise you. Let's see.
Yeah, there we go.
All right, 1 second. Select board budget, how's that?
That works. So all of these budgets are, I'd like to say, pretty basic. The salary line items are just increasing for contractual raises.
Excuse me one second. Karen, can you take down oh, I'm sorry. I thought that was still the police. I'm sorry. My mistake.
So again, the
Okay, everyone
salaries,
can see okay?
Yep.
Okay,
the salaries are just the contractual salary increases for the Board of Selectmen, which will be voted on at town meeting. The 2 full-time clerks that we have, town administrator's salary, and then the contractual and personnel bylaw, office and educational incentives, longevity, sick buyback, and contribution match as well. So the salaries are pretty much in line with the negotiated raises. The expense accounts, really just carrying forward what was there last year. Professional services we've used for a variety of reasons. We've used it to do-
Why is electricity blank?
electricity shouldn't be blank. Electricity is paid through the town hall annex.
Oh,
the
okay,
budget,
okay.
yeah.
For both budgets.
So the professional services we've used in the past for grant matching, we're using a portion of it this year to offset the additional costs for the wage study. We've used it for engineering consultants, for other consultants, facilitators in the past. Also used it a little bit to fill in some of the gaps. We don't have any other accounts that we can really transfer money from. So what we don't use, we give back at the end of the year. The other expenses, I think are pretty straightforward. Just travel, meetings, school, dues and subscriptions, office supplies. We did bump up office supplies last year a little bit. Just trying to replace on needs only basis some of the older equipment that we have, or the older furniture that we have in the building. We still have some desks and tables from the WPA back in the 30s and 40s. So that's pretty much it. The selectmen budget.
right. Thank you.
I think our other two are just as exciting. But
Right, I know. Hold on to your hat.
Hold on to
Next
your
one's
hats, yeah.
coming. So this is the town hall annex. Can everyone see
Yeah.
that?
salary's pretty straightforward. We have the one maintenance staff member and slight overtime stipend of $500. Heating costs, you can see the previous years, 21, 23, we're budgeting 24. Electricity, 20, 28, we're budgeting 29. Water testing, we're required to test the water they're both public water supplies at the town hall and the town hall annex. That has to be tested, I think, every other week. We send that up to Linda Correa. She's our public water supply person, and she records that and files the paperwork with the state. Equipment repair. That's just about everything too. And building repair and maintenance, we have, the generator. We just spent about $5,000 on the generator. We just got another $5,000 bill because of the radiator is not functioning, and the backup generator right now is not working at the town hall. We have a generator at the annex. Got a number of plumbing issues at the annex. So that money goes quick. Professional services, again, we've used, we pay Linda Correa with the professional services. The other is actually for the actual water testing. Telephone is negotiated telephone and contractual telephone stipends. Gasoline and oil is minimal. We have one shared vehicle that we've shared with the building inspector. We just purchased a vehicle. It just came in. It should be delivered tomorrow or this week. And we're going to share that with the maintenance specialist and the building inspector. So where we haven't used a lot of gas and oil in the past, because we've used the electric vehicle, we will be using some gas and oil this year. Custodial supplies is pretty basic. And then the custodial staff does get a clothing stipend. And that's pretty much it for. I think Chris had a question.
Go ahead, Chris. I can't see, so go ahead, go for it.
Yes, Jim, just one quick question. Would it be possible to see, even if it has to go back as far as fiscal year 23, would it be possible to see the breakdown of the expenses between the two buildings? you know, not necessarily for this year, but I guess for 23, is that at all possible to get?
It's a good question. I'm not sure. I know a number of the expenses are shared, you know, supplies, maintenance staff, that's all shared. Actual repairs and electricity we can do, heating we can do. And I think major repairs we can do. We may have to actually go through them individually and break them out, but I think we can do that.
Those are the three categories specifically I would be interested in: the electricity maintenance and the electricity and the repairs, and the you know, fuel costs or the heat costs. So if that's possible, thank you.
No, that should be possible. We'll work on putting that together.
I also had a question. Jim, you mentioned the water testing that takes place at the annex and at the town hall. Do the schools also have to have their water tested?
They do. They have a private company that, I want to say Northeast Water Supply. They come in and do the testing for them. All the public water supply wells. So we have one at the school now that covers the new school, the elementary school, and the library. They're all on one system now. We have the Council on Aging building, which has a separate public water supply that gets tested. And we have the old high school that has another public water supply.
Right.
The Macomber School as well. So those all get tested.
Okay, thanks.
We've had our maintenance guy, and that's why if you went back to the water testing for FY23, it went down from 87 down to just under $3,000 because we trained our maintenance staff person to actually do the testing. He'll do the in-house testing and bring the samples up to Linda Carrere and she'll process them. So that saved us a bit of money.
Great, thank you. Go ahead, Al.
Just question, Jim, about the water testing. What have been the results? You know, I know that years ago at Cumberland Farms, the town hall were spewing, to use a better, to use a lousy word. I think it's BHT, although that could have been the bovine chemical, but chemicals into the groundwater in Central Village. And I'm just curious what the results have been over time.
Good question. I do know that we have monitoring wells throughout the parking lot around the town hall. And they have been improving slightly over the years. They have not gotten worse. We still have those monitored on a yearly basis. That's some of the professional services that is included in the town, the selectmen's budget to cover some of those costs. It's relatively minor. The well itself, we test on a regular basis. We do not drink the water. We have bottled water in the town hall and the annex.
Okay.
Whether or not it's drinkable, I don't know. It has gotten better, but yeah, I could check and get back to you.
It's probably never going to get well, but it may get better over time. And of course, there's a personal part of this whole thing because my wells were affected, over time, and not so much the main potable water well, which as weird as it sounds, is in a little square under aisle 8. But regardless, it was a big issue in the day, and it was there was this back and forth between Cumberland Farms and the town as to who was responsible for this migration of chemicals. So you're just curious more than anything else. So we won't belabor it. Thank you.
It is one of those, because of the limited use that we have of the water, we fall into a different category, which I think changes some of the criteria, which works in our favor, I guess, as far as it being suitable.
Okay. Well, thanks.
Thanks, Jim. I got one more surprise budget for you. You ready?
I'm ready.
Well, you got to think on your feet. So 1 second here. It's the legal budget. So
I
just
thought
wanna-
you were going to bring up. I thought you were going to bring up street lights.
I think
Whoa, no. I'm trying to try. It's a now. There we go. All right, so this is the legal budget, so
yeah,
you can just
legal.
talk a little bit about this too, Jim.
So I don't have it in front of me, but I think we went up $10,000. Is that?
So it's 135,000. And so maybe just the nature of what's in the legal budget. Is it estimated for, future lawsuits or, what's 135,000 spent on?
You can see the previous years, 22 and 23, 148 and 122. It only takes one case or two cases to really blow this budget out of the water. One zoning case that goes to court. We had East Beach was an expensive case a couple of years ago. I think we spent, in 1 year, I think we spent close to $50,000 on the East Beach suit. Right now, we do not have any big suits, but we could with the Point. There's a couple of issues going on down there.
Yeah.
But in general, right now, this fiscal year, we're on budget. We also use it for, they review the town warrants, they review zoning articles, they attend zoning board meetings when there's controversial items, they'll attend planning board meetings. Most of the Board of Health stuff is being paid for now out of their grant, their legal issues, so that's helped a little bit. But we use it for a variety of reasons, personnel issues. They're kind of they kind of do it all, and we use them as little as we can, but we do use them quite a bit.
Is any portion of that amount a retainer item so that, phone calls that are made to them for, questions that don't require a tremendous amount of research on their part, but that, if you make phone calls to them here and there, so what portion of that is retainer?
So they don't do retainage, they just charge on their time. Right? So we give them a phone call, they'll usually, depending on the phone calls, they'll usually group a couple of them together and charge 15 minutes.
Okay.
I have to say the billing has been very fair from what I can see. Yeah.
Good,
I
okay.
think we've been fairly fortunate, and they respond well, and they have a good staff up there with attorneys in different areas that provide a lot of assistance.
Just in the form of access, if some other board in town had a question of town council of that firm, should they go through your office to do that, or are they open to be able to contact them directly?
They go through my office, there's a form they fill out, and then I sign
okay.
off on it, and then gives them access to the attorneys.
Yes,
That's
maybe I
good.
can
That's
say
good.
some years ago, we really banged on that. You
Yeah.
can't call up and get legal charges. You're gonna go through the select or through Jim.
Good, that's good. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thanks, Jim, for doing these. I know they're not very exciting, but
Do you want to do the
it's helpful.
cemetery? Well,
Yeah, if you want to, if you don't mind. I didn't prepare that one, but as a slide, but if you wanted to talk through it, that's fine.
yeah, I can talk through it. If you have questions, you can get back to me, and I'll get you the responses. The salaries is pretty straightforward. We have 3 employees there now, the foreman and 2 one laborer with going for a hoisting license and a traditional labor. We finally filled the 3 positions. They've only had 1 or 2 people in those positions over the last almost year or so. We've had 1 employee out for 6 months. We had trouble filling that 3rd position. And then within the salary line items, we have a seasonal account for seasonal employees to help with grass cutting and weed whacking. That ranges, we've budgeted $30,000, and over the past years, it's anywhere from $25,000 to $30,000 we spend on seasonal help. And it's tough getting seasonal help. It's not easy work cutting grass in the sun all day. Overtime, we do have about $9,000 budgeted for overtime. That's mainly for Saturday burials. There's an additional expense if they do Saturday burials, so we get the majority of that back through fees. But that goes into the general fund, so we need to budget accordingly. Beyond the Saturday burials, there is really no other overtime that we charge. With the exception of this past Sunday, I called them in for a settlement over one of the one of the plots. I think that's the only time they've been in on a Sunday. As far as the expense accounts go, they have, go ahead, Hugh. Hugh, do you have a question?
Yeah, there is the perpetual care fund. And I know it has various statutory mandates of how you can invest it and so forth. But and now that interest rates are irrational as opposed to being non-existent for the past several years, who is in charge of making those investments?
So that goes to Sue, the treasurer, manages all
treasurer,
the accounts.
okay. Thank you.
And I would just simply say that for any rational person, we should die Monday through Friday, and that way we need to incur a weekend, overtime.
So it's actually been a busy year for them this year. And the last couple of years since COVID started, it's been,
Yeah.
unfortunately, it's been busy.
Oh, I bet.
As far as expenses go, we have a regular heating, electricity, the equipment repair. We bumped up a little bit this year from $2,500 to $5,000. We reduced the building repair and maintenance from $6,000 to $3,500. We had bumped that up last year because we had Diamond doing a lot of work on the building. They've done a considerable amount of work. They installed a new bathroom. They re-sided the whole garage. They're putting in a new electrical service. They painted all the gates, put new hardware on all the gates around the cemetery. They've been great to work with down there. Vehicle repair was about the same, $9,000 that they put in for a new truck this year as part of their capital improvement program, and we're looking to fund that through the perpetual care account. So hopefully their vehicle repair will go down a bit. They've been jump starting their truck every morning and filling the tire with air every morning so they can get moving. Telephone is just negotiated stipends for their telephones, which they use on a regular basis. Most of the time they're out of the office. Gasoline and oil is pretty standard in the expense account. Clothing allowance is contractual. They have a little bit of miscellaneous expenses, and that's about it. So I think their expenses are going up from $38,000 to $39,000 and change. And the rest is just contractual salaries. We are, just so you know, with the cemetery, we just, we're about 50% through the design of 2 or 3 more plots north of the existing plots, just to the east of the existing garage. They'll be doing some test pits out there in the next month to see where the groundwater table is, and hopefully it's low enough so that we can use all that land, but we'll be able to use hopefully most of it anyway. They just finished paving the streets that were all dirt and gravel in the back, and it's getting kind of messy, especially in the winter when everything gets wet and muddy. So that looks good. In the spring they'll go in and they'll fill the edges in between the pavement and the plots themselves and clean that up. That was done through perpetual care money as well. I think that's all I have for the cemetery.
Thank you, Jim. If no other questions for that, I don't want to hold you too much up, but I think the governor's budget might be being released tomorrow. Is that still, I think that's on schedule, right?
As far as I know, it's on schedule for tomorrow, yes. So
Yep.
that'll give us some big indication on the Chapter 70.
Right.
Usually the governor's budget is the Chapter 70 carries right through all the different versions. School choice and charter school will also be in there, which will be big.
Yep.
Chapter
So
70, I think, is a big one.
we had tentatively put our collective date for our next joint meeting to be next Wednesday, the 31st. So maybe we should go ahead and get that posted, because it sounds like if the budget comes out tomorrow, that we will have more information, right, to really discuss.
Yes. Yeah, we're still waiting on the other big ones. A Diamond. Bristol Aggie isn't as big, but Diamond could be a big one. And then health insurance. The last couple of years we were at 2% and 4% increases. The last few years, this year we're going to be up 7 to 10% increase in health insurance. So that's a big number.
Yeah, because your next the next select board meeting, right, is in 3 weeks, and that's your that's your next meeting, and that's the meeting that the select board will be voting on the budget, right?
That's correct, yeah.
So, so maybe this 31st would be a good meeting to kind of, we'll have the biggest elements with at least the state numbers, so we can have another conversation. So I'll go ahead and just circulate an email, and then we can get it posted tomorrow.
Yeah, but let's remember that the governor proposes and the legislature disposes.
I know, we have to make a budget based on estimates, we know that. I know.
No surprise.
I know. But the budget is due, so that's the best information that we'll have at the time that it has to get made. Right, the only suggestion, Jim, that I, have talked to you about in previous times is this is, and I agree, this is early, right? Because all the numbers haven't come in yet. And, but in order to have a May town meeting, this is the time frame that we have. And my only suggestion is if it were a June town meeting, that would buy us all one more month to get more of these estimates a little firmer. So, and that would be a change. But that's where we are. That's our only choice, really, right? To give ourselves more time.
Yeah, it's interesting. So the DLS hands out a tentative schedule for budgets for towns, and we are way ahead of that schedule. And they do it for the May meetings as well. They just kind of wait, I think, until the majority of the numbers come in before they get too far. I think it's good to get a lot of this stuff out early, but some of these decisions just can't be made until we get some of the bigger numbers in.
Yeah, I mean, this is, Jim, you and I have talked about it. It seems so early for the select board per bylaw by February 20th to have a final budget that they're making recommendations on to come to the finance committee. There's so much estimates in there that by default, it can't be extremely comprehensive because they're making such big assumption changes. And then, then it comes to the finance committee and then things shift. But we've all had a good relationship that if something substantial after the select board has voted on the budget, if it came to us that, you can kind of do a redo kind of thing, and we could consider that into the budget. But that's the difficult part. Go ahead, Cindy.
Does either Diamond or Bristol Aggie have a deadline, a date certain that they are supposed to provide us with their assessment?
Good question. They do vote at a certain time. Normally, we get those numbers in February, at least the Diamond. Yeah, I'll check on that and see what the actual date is.
Karen, we currently do not have a FinCom representative for either one of those groups, correct?
Correct.
Right. Okay.
So Jim, did someone have anything? No, something else? So Jim, we thank you for your 5-year plan. I have not had a chance to even open it, but I look forward to kind of reviewing it, and then we can all talk a little more comprehensive about it. But thank you for putting it together. So that's a huge thing to do. So thank you.
You're welcome. Sure. Chairman Brewer put a lot of time into both of those as well.
That's terrific. I'll thank him too. So that's great. So does anyone else have anything for Jim? And then we can let him go. Especially if we see you in a week.
Doesn't give me a whole lot of time, but we'll see what we can do.
I know, right? Well, I was going to say we can try to search for another date, but the school is coming in to the finance committee on February 6th, so we don't have too much time in between.
Oh, we'll make it work.
Okay. All right. Thank you for coming,
Yep.
Jim. I
Thank you,
appreciate
guys. You
your
guys have a
help.
good night.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Next item on the agenda is committee and liaison updates. I did circulate. Lawrence had been the liaison to the infrastructure committee. And so now there is no representative on FinCom, and the committee has requested someone get put on the committee, especially because they're looking to potentially have a warrant article on the town warrant. Christopher? Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just, I would like to request if it is agreeable to the committee, I would very much like to be representative on the infrastructure committee. I had actually previously spoken with a few of their committee members thus far. Unfortunately, I was planning on being at the meeting tomorrow, but I'm going to have to watch the recap because I got called out of town for work. But in any case, I would very much like to be the FinCom rep if the committee is in agreement with that.
So move.
Second.
I don't see anyone fighting you, Christopher.
No worries. Thank you very much.
So we can take a roll call, and we can then ask the select board to appoint you at the next meeting. So let's do a roll call to nominate Christopher to the infrastructure committee as the FinCom rep. Hugh?
Hugh Morton, aye.
Thank you. Al?
Al Lees, aye.
Cindy?
Cindy Brown, aye.
Christopher?
I'll abstain. Thank you.
I think Gary left. He had to go to a meeting. So Zach?
I saw his lips move.
Okay. Zach is aye. And Karen Rose, aye. Thank you. So there is
Yeah,
a meeting.
see, Zach, we have your picture, but you're not on mute, but now we don't have your voice.
Oh, now you're on. mute.
Oh,
Oh,
it's not
Well,
funny.
very
So now
quickly.
you've muted yourself and now we can hear you. Say something.
So I've got the audio on the computer.
Oh, okay.
okay.
Gotcha. All right. We hear you on the other line.
But
Sorry.
that was enough, I think.
Great. Well, Christopher, thank you. So there's the meeting tomorrow night. I'm going to try to attend, but I appreciate, so we'll pass this along to the select board for you to get appointed, and then you'll have to get sworn in, so you won't be able to vote on anything until that happens. But we'll, in the next select board meetings in 3 weeks, so at least you can be part of the committee. But thank you for volunteering for that. Thank you. The next item is the minutes of January 16th, 2024. If anyone would like to make a motion to approve those.
So moved.
I'll second it. Yep.
Great. Any discussion on those minutes? Nope. I will do a roll call. Al?
Al Lees, aye.
Hugh?
Hugh Morton, aye.
Cindy?
Cindy Brown, aye.
Christopher?
Christopher Thrasher, aye.
Zach? He says aye. You betcha. And Karen Rouse, aye. Thank you. All right. So we do not have a regularly scheduled meeting next Tuesday. So, yep, but we may have a meeting on Wednesday. So the Wednesday meeting would be the continuation with the select board and either the full school committee or representatives of the school committee to talk about the next phase of where we are in the budget. Now that we should have some more state numbers that we can discuss, and the select board's been discussing the budget. So try to get an understanding of where what their thoughts are on the budget. Al, go ahead.
Yeah, just very, very briefly, I loved the 5-year plan. I thought that the CIP plan was a great first start, and there's nothing negative in what I'm going to say. I just want to make the comment that it is only probably less than half of the CIP needs because it does not include the schools in any great extent. So I just wanted to bring that up at the meeting, that it was a fabulous first start. there's more to go, but thank God we've at least got this moving forward. So it begins to lay out the, the paperwork. So that's all I wanted to say.
Great, thank you. And you're right. I mean, having the school's input is very important. So the school's 5-year capital needs, as well as the school's operating needs and its program needs, from talking with Jim, when he did this he kept the same 54% split calculation, right? So now that has to be trued up to what are the needs of the school and what is the school estimating for programs and enrollments and needs. So there needs to be input from the school and kind of figure out how to make that all work.
Well, just speaking with my CIPC hat on, I didn't have an opportunity to open up Jim's 5-year plan, but from what I had seen of it, I thought that he had included the schools. I mean, the schools had a very extensive list of major issues at the various schools that will have to take place over the course of the next few years, and we asked them to prioritize what needs they had more currently than things that could wait. So I mean, their needs totaled, I don't know, $13 million, something like that. I mean, it's significant issues at the Macabre School, significant issues at the elementary school that need to be addressed. But they did receive an allocation in the current CIPC recommendations for what would be voted on at the town meeting, and that was roughly 40% of the total. So I don't know where the usual split comes from. Typically, we haven't really seen too many school requests coming in for free cash articles to a large extent, but this year they had several items, and in fact, we're going to let the schools decide. We assigned a number. It was a number based on several items that they had in their budget, and they'll get to choose prior to town meeting which items they want to address of that amount. So it's roughly $400,000 out of the $1 million that CIPC is recommending that be used out of free cash. So roughly 40% of the million was allocated towards the school. I don't have the list here in front of me of what some of the items were, but that's kind of how it broke down. But their 5-year plan was rather extensive, and it was prioritized to a certain degree.
And Christopher, I'm sorry. I'll just dive in for 2 seconds. I'll relook at it again. Maybe I missed that portion of what you're saying.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And I didn't look at Jim's report, so maybe it's not in there, but I certainly can supply. These are all public documents. I can certainly supply to the committee once we talk about the article for CIPC, what some of the other items were that were included. As Karen has asked about many times in the past, is that, it's fine if we see a list of what is being recommended to be approved or to be appropriated at town meeting, but it's also important to see what things were left on the table. And so part of that 5-year plan from Jim would have or should have included that. So I'll go back and look at his plan. Like I said, I didn't get a chance to read it to see it.
So I'm sorry, Christopher. You go ahead. You dive right in.
Oh, no worries at all. Well, two things. First of all, I was going to echo that I was very, very glad to see this plan thus far, and I think it is a step in the right direction. It's a good start for sure. Just wanted to echo Mr. Lee's your comment on that. I also did have a question regarding the potential meeting on Wednesday. Now, is that meeting set, or is it tentative because we're still waiting on the possibility that the budget numbers might not be out from the state? Is that accurate?
Yep. So at the last meeting that we had, Jim was anticipating that the governor's budget was anticipating. They did have a schedule that it would be out sometime this week. So we did anticipate, assuming that the governor's budget would be on schedule, that we would wait to convene until after the budget was released, because we would otherwise have nothing else to say other than what we already said. So we are on track. So it is looking like the governor's budget will be released tomorrow, which would then, we had all selected January 31st as that tentative date. And then we put it as a placeholder, and we would cancel the meeting only if the governor's budget didn't come through. So that's where we're at. So we should reconvene on that date.
Excellent. Thank you.
Sure. Go ahead, Hugh.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on what Cindy was saying. I've always been under the impression that the capital budget was sui generis. That is, no allocation, just priority of the items that come before the committee based upon what they are, with no reference to the authorship. Maybe right, maybe wrong, but that's what I thought it was. Each standing on its own merits.
Oh yeah, each one absolutely stands on its own merits. The schools had such a varied list of items that could not be fulfilled for the current year. Things that they had prioritized was too large for the allocation. So the committee determined a cash amount or $1 amount, and will let the schools determine which of their priorities are going to be the first ones.
I'm not criticizing what the committee is.
Oh, no, right. I was just.
I had not thought there was any kind of prior allocation like the 54, 46 kind of thing. It was simply what comes down the pike and gets evaluated when it's before the committee.
Right. I certainly was not aware of using the allocation either. We did not discuss that at CIPC.
That was my assumption. That's really what I was saying.
Great, thank you. So again, next meeting would be Wednesday, the 31st, and then the meeting after that is February 6th, and that is scheduled for the school's budget. We also realized we didn't schedule the highway department, so we're going to try to have them also come in on February 6th.
Or the town accountant. The town accountant has not been
Out
in.
of the town accountant. You're right, so we'll have to figure how to squeeze that one in. That should be a quick one.
Right.
But
They're irrelevant, but I would suggest that now we have a full board to reallocate the various liaisons now that we have vacancies that now we can fill
yes,
next month, next meeting.
sure. I will definitely add that to the next meeting. Thank you, Hugh. So the meeting of February 6th, I just wanted to ask everyone's opinion. Would everyone like to, since it's with the school and it'll be, a very big meeting and potentially a number of school committees, representatives there, and Tom Auburn and representatives from school. Do we want to have it remote, or would we like to have it in person? Any thoughts?
I think it should be in person again. I mean, I think that was much better. But that's just my feeling.
In person, Zach says in person.
In person is good, Zoom is convenient. Take your choice.
I know. Christopher, what do you think?
I would say that as long as we're would be able to physically accommodate everybody involved, I think the discussion for that type of event, it works better in person, but that's just one man's opinion.
Yep.
I'm
no,
not sure where we will be, but I would point out that in England, the House of Commons is set up so the two benches are more than a sword's length apart. That may be a good standard.
I think in person makes sense, and we could do the same sort of thing where it'd be hybrid, so that somebody who from the committee was not able to attend could, and certainly the general public could come in as well. So we could try to to do that. So I'm thinking it's an important meeting and, go ahead, Al.
I was just gonna say that I would be happy to be in person. Unfortunately, and hopefully this won't carry on much longer. I've had long COVID, and so I'm not sure which direction I want to go, but my hope is to be able to be in person for this particular meeting. So at least if we have a hybrid situation, we can, you know, accommodate people that either cannot make it for whatever reason.
Great. We'll hope you feeling better. So, yeah, I think hybrid's important. I think for the general public to have access, I think it's important. And so, anytime we were in person, I always want us to try to have hybrid. So that's an option for people.
Good.
Okay. So all right. So we'll plan on in person. So terrific. Okay. I have, no other topics within 48 hours. I've got nothing else.
Time
If
to go.
nothing
Motion
else,
to adjourn, motion to adjourn.
Second.
terrific. I will do a roll call. Al,
Ellie's eye.
thank you. Hugh,
Hugh Morton, aye.
Cindy,
Cindy Brown, aye, and Christopher, it is way too quiet at your house to say that you have a little baby there.
I, as a matter of fact, I'm not at my house and it's killing me. I'm actually in Georgia
okay.
tonight. I had to fly at 4 a.m. this morning, and I'd much rather be curled up on the couch with the little.
So aye.
all right, Christopher, we need your vote.
I'm Christopher Thrasher.
Thank you. Thank you, Zach. Zach says aye.
Yeah, nods.
And Karen Rouse, aye. Thank you very much, everyone.